Welcome to Black News. Welcome to the Black News Network, BNN 247. I'm your host today, Brother Smith-Bey, coming at you live on this Sunday, November 30th, 2025. I know that you all had a festive holiday, and that includes the ones that don't celebrate Thanksgiving. Some people they find ways to make this the holiday that they want it to be, and that's what they do, and that's okay. It's a beautiful holiday. Um, I don't know if you've ever seen the lights of the Christmas lights up in somewhere near Fort Worth, in Dallas, but it's a beautiful sight. And if you ever get an opportunity to go to this little whole community park where they do Christmas lights, I think you'd love it. I know the kids will. If you got kids that you want them to understand the holidays, take them out to that park. Today, our topic is about how community disasters or how disasters bring our families, bring people together. And it's not as simple as it sounds, because you can live next to somebody right now you don't even know. Do you know everybody that live on your street? If you do, you're in less than 1% of America, because nobody knows who lives next door. You assume that you know who lives next door, but you don't know. You want to know who lives next door, but you don't know. It's almost like saying, are you prepared? Because are you dependent on your neighbor to give you the assistance that you need? In other words, you may not have a generator. Are you thinking that you're going to run an extension cord from their house to yours? I'm talking to the average person. I ain't talking to people that have got millions and millions of dollars and they got room after room. But, when that time comes, when Mother Nature calls with a hurricane, with a tornado, with an earthquake, you ain't got very much to say, because you have no control of what that is. The only thing you can do is attempt to be ready for situations that may be coming your way. You can excuse me. You can prepare survival kits. You can prepare storm shelters. You can prepare tunnels. You can prepare whatever you want. When Mother Nature calls, there's not but so many things you're going to be able to do. And in order for you to do those things, you're going to have to prepare some kind of way. But as I was saying, the following generations, the next 1, 2, 3 generations, are not going to be prepared for these things, because they figure somebody else is going to do it. The generations after us are thinking that somebody else is going to do it. And that's where the problem lies. And what it's going to boil down to, they're going to be the only ones available to do it, because most of the people that know how to do it are going to be too old to do it, and they're not going to get out there and try and do something that's going to hurt them. They can't do it anymore. So this generation to come, I challenge you and everybody out there to train your children how to survive away from you. Because right now, many of our children, young adults, are not capable of sustaining their life away from their parents. And that's a sad thing to say for our 20 to 30-year-olds. And if you're reaching 25 to 30 and you're still living off your parents, I mean, if you have to be there, it's a different story than you just there. When you don't have you have other options. You're a grown man, grown woman, capable of doing anything in the world that you want to do, but you're so hooked on somebody else doing it for you, you stay right there with your parents. But moving on into our subject, I want you to know this is the Black News Network, the real voice of Black USA, broadcasting live every Sunday at 3:30 p.m. And I'm coming to you with things that you can use. My co-host Claude is away on travel, enjoying his holidays, and I Want to do a shout out for him. He will be back soon, though. But in the meantime, let's talk about shared resources. What type of shared resources do we have in the midst of a disaster? Now, there's different areas in the country where we can experience these disasters. And I want to break it down for you so you can kind of understand why I picked the topics I picked and why we can talk about the topics in a certain way. So if you live in America, if you live on the West Coast, what is the most likely disaster to happen on that side of the country? Earthquakes. Earthquakes are over there because the tectonic plates are there and they always snap. And when they snap, you see stuff like that bridge that collapsed a few years ago, several years ago in California. I don't know the city and I ain't trying to pinpoint disasters. I'm just saying when disasters happen, you don't have control over what Mother Nature's going to do. So the only thing you can do as a human being is try and prepare for it. And that is to go and get your supplies, get the things that you need most for a particular type of disaster. And like I said, you have to have shared resources. What are you going to do about food? You can live without food 3, 5, 7 days. You can go a week, 10 days without food, but you cannot go 10 days without water. Your body cannot function without water. So if you're doing anything to stay afloat of what's happening out here in this world, you have a contingency of water. Don't depend on turning that faucet and getting your water. It may or may not be there. So my recommendation to you is to have a minimum of 2 cases of water. And a case of water consists of 40 bottles each. So you got 80 bottles of water, and you don't know how long it may be before somebody. I heard something on my thing. I don't know what it was, but you have so long before that I mean somebody may be able to help you or rescue you, and this is part of those shared resources. You may be able to help somebody who don't have water because they didn't get as prepared as you are. And like Nico said a few minutes ago when I was going through one of her songs, are you prepared? And that is the big question. Are you prepared? Because you may or may not be. And if you don't have a single thing set up for a contingency of yourself and your family or the people closest to you, then shame on you. You might need to get something together because that means if you ain't got a single thing prepared right now, that means you are dependent on somebody else to do that for you. If you don't have an escape route, if you don't have 2 or 3 ways to get to where you are, that is not somebody else. That's you. You have to do that for yourself. So I'm saying get a contingency plan under what we're talking about right now is shared resources. Now, what could they be? It's going to be food, shelter, and water. And if I don't have shelter, but I got the means to take the food that I want, what do you think I'm going to do? When I say I got the means to take what I want, what do you think I'm going to do? So that means what do you need to do to protect what you have as a resource? Food, shelter, and water. You've seen some of the movies how people start to act when shelter, when resources become rare and scarce, and people start to get hungry. You know, things change, relatives change, friends change, and my suggestion to you is be careful because you might be part of this situation. And don't ever think that you're never going to be part of this situation. Don't ever think that it's always going to be somebody else going through this situation. You are just as susceptible to that situation as anybody else. So don't think you're immune to what we're talking about here. The food, shelter, and water. If I need it and you have it, I'm coming at it. Not only me, but 100 other people know that you are the resource person. So they coming to you. So the object of the whole situation is to not only are you prepared for a situation to come your way, and you know that you're in this area that's prone to this type of disaster, you know what you need to do to prepare for this type of disaster. They got the wildfires on the West Coast, and they consume millions of acres every single year, and you have no control over those wildfires. In Hawaii last year, it might have been earlier this year, the entire city burned. The entire city. The fire started on one side of town, and the wind was just right for that fire. And it blew that fire all the way into that city, and it covered every single home in that city, and everything burned up. Everything burned up. So these fires are just as bad. So you got all these disasters that are pending on Mother Nature. So you can't beat Mother Nature. So the only thing you can do is prepare yourself to try and deal with Mother Nature. Because when she get mad, she gonna do what she want to do, and you have no resources, nothing, no recourses. You're looking at direct aid. So now the disaster has happened. We talked about what's happening on the West Coast. Let's look at the mid. I'm going to go to direct aid in just a second. You go to the middle of America, the middle of the United States. What particular disasters could happen in the middle of America most of the time? Tornadoes. Now, if you have never experienced a tornado, you don't want to. Willie Jackson, you don't want to experience a tornado. I was in 3 tornadoes at one time, quite a while ago in 1971, February 21st at 6:30 p.m. And I'm telling you the exact date and time that these tornadoes hit, because that is something I could never forget. The exact day and the time these tornadoes hit. I'm telling you, it's nothing nice. Many of my friends died. Our house was destroyed. And what's so weird about this is that my grandmother's house was probably 10 feet away from my mother's house. And my grandmother was paralyzed. So she was already paralyzed before the tornado. So when the tornado hit, it skipped her house and tore ours down, then tore the rest of the street up. Her house only had a few broken windows, and that is a blessing. That was a blessing for us, because we were not prepared for that. We were not prepared, but we've been prepared ever since. And that's what I ask of you, to be prepared from this day forward, because you do have the knowledge. When you know better, you do better. So on the East Coast, rain, 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 hurricanes, from Florida on up, that usually sweep across the East Coast and flood all these cities, and they just get water from everywhere. So floods on the East Coast, tornadoes mid USA, and earthquakes and forest fires on the West Coast. These are some of the type of disasters that you're going to have. So if you live in any of those areas, it behooves you to go out and try and have the necessary equipment that's recommended for that type of disaster. You know, your community should be on that same level. You should have a home plan, an individual plan, a home plan, a relative plan, and a neighbor plan. because if you don't know who your neighbor, you don't know your neighbors, how or what can you ask for in the midst or in the aftermath of a disaster? What do you ask for? Do you ask your neighbor that you never speak to, that you see every day, that you saw every day for the last 5 or 6 years, and you never talk to them? But now, because that disaster hit, you guys are best friends. Y'all working together to clear trees. You're working together to rescue people. You're working together to have food to eat and something to drink. How many times has somebody told you where to find a deal, where to find something great, where to find what you're looking for? You know, that's a wonderful thing when somebody can help you move from one dead zone to a beautiful zone of what you need or what you're looking for. And people do that for you. All you have to do is have something to bring to the table. You know, you can look good, you can have the nicest car, you can have everything there is, but what do you bring to the table? It doesn't matter how popular you are, but what do you bring to the table? If you bring nothing as a neighbor, then it's more than likely a hesitation to support you in a bad situation. But if you are that neighbor that's always there, that knows all of your friends, then it's so easy for you to come together and start to prepare how to get out of this disaster. It takes more than you to survive. And in order for you to survive, you have to collaborate with somebody that may be able to help you hold that log up, because you ain't gonna be able to hold it up by yourself alone. All you got to do is ask. You got to know some way to get yourself together. What if you can't get 10 miles down the road to your cousin's house? What are you going to do? What are you going to do if you have to leave your house in a hurry? What are you going to do if they have martial law? You got so many options that you have to worry about, that it's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Another thing that you do create is social bond. You find people that you may become friends with during disasters that create lifelong friendships, that create a friendship like no other. You too have suffered a situation where you went through something that made life so much bearable because you formed an alliance with someone in your neighborhood or in your community, or someone that you randomly ran across in the store. What if they had the tornado hit and you were in Walmart? Somebody in there going to become your friend some kind of way, because you cannot just deal with that type of situation alone. People have to work together, and more especially our people have to work together. And you always wonder, many of us wonder why, well, many, they say black people are angry. This is a myth. There's only one thing that bothers most black people, and that's the failure to acknowledge who we are and where we are by others. You know, you can always call us black, you can always call us African American, you can always call us any other names you want to, but to acknowledge how we've gotten here, the accomplishments we've made, what we've done in life to be who we are, you have to acknowledge that. And I'm not expecting anything from anybody in form of acknowledgement, but what I'm expecting is for you to not stand in my way as I progress, because I'm gonna move forward and nobody can stop that momentum. You could get in the way and cause me to swerve, but you cannot stop it. So when you're set on being what you want to be and doing what you want to do, don't let people slow your roll. Stay on your path. You're gonna have haters, and the closer you get to it, the more haters you're gonna have. Okay, is that AI? Yeah, that's AI. All right, social bonds. You learn people. You learn the people in your community. Then you get to know who lives next door to you. You become better familiar with those people. I mean, it's not something many of us will do normally, and that is to go next door and say, "Hey, I'm so and so. Here's some cookies I bake as your housewarming gift. I want to welcome you to the neighborhood." I don't know. Did you get welcome to your neighborhood? You don't know, right? You just move in. You want to go on in and get yourself set up the way you want to, and not have to be worried about the neighbor coming over taking up your time. He who controls your time controls you. Community strengthening. Now that you all have suffered that disaster together, you are now forming a community situation where you can probably get on the city council. You can start holding community meetings. You can start going to the regular community meetings that they hold once a month. And then you can take that group and start meeting at the city council meetings and start making changes that enhance the way your community operates, that enhance the way you live in that community, that enhance the resources available to that community. That is where you want to be. You don't want to be the one that not know how your community will respond to a tragedy or a disaster. You don't want to be the one walking around not knowing a single thing that you could be doing to help your community or help your family or help yourself for that matter. You want to be able to do all of these things, and you cannot do it unless you engage in the process of getting to know your community and helping to strengthen your community in a manner that ensures that contingency and that survival. You got to be able to survive. I don't care how bad it gets, you must survive the situation. And if you can go through that situation and survive that massive earthquake, like that one we were talking about earlier, when the bridges collapsed in California. I mean, the Midwest, these tornadoes, level 5, that's the worst one, 130 to 170 miles an hour. You know, tornadoes, I don't know, between tornadoes, between hurricanes, and between earthquakes and fires, I don't know. I don't know which one would be the easiest to navigate. There's not an easy way, Lee. 1, 2, 3. It's not an easy way to deal with these situations that you encounter out in that Mother Nature brings your way. I'll put it that way. As you grow or go through that incident, you're creating interest from outsiders. So people are watching because people want to know how you made it through that situation. It ain't as simple as it looks. It ain't as simple as it sounds. It is hard to go through a disaster that happens through Mother Nature, especially if it happens to your town. Now, not long ago, they had all these tornadoes in Mississippi, and they started to show a lot of the situations that happened in Mississippi, and a lot of people were shocked to see that many of these communities have never developed into real communities. That it's a trailer house over here, it's a shed over here. It's people not actually forming communities in a way where they're in charge of their communities. They're afraid to mobilize. It's almost like the whole entire population of our people except for some are afraid to mobilize. You got the organizations that are available to help move forward past the disaster, but you also got organizations or companies that come in and push you further down the hole. You got contractors that take advantage of people. After the hurricane hit New Orleans, there are people still there trying to get their homes fixed. They got taken by contractors coming in there, taking their money and becoming taking their money and not doing the repairs that they said they was going to do. I think Hurricane Katrina was an eye opener for many Americans to see, for one, how bad it was and how many people died. Over 1,000 people died down there during that particular hurricane, and you saw how the American government responded to that tragedy. You saw how people who lived in the communities responded to that tragedy. Many people never went back to New Orleans. Many people just said, we're not going back because it scared them so bad that they refused to go back to their native land where they were born and raised. They're not going back. So you cannot run from Mother Nature, by the way, because you don't know what's next. You may be running to the exact place Mother Nature is going to hit next. So wherever you are, it doesn't matter what Mother Nature has in store for you. What matters is that you realize where you are and you realize what type of planning you have to do to survive what Mother Nature does to you, because that is where you are, and you have to overcome, you have to improvise, and you have to adapt to the way of the world. You got to survive. Now, I know you've watched what's been happening in Ukraine and all over the country, and you see that there's no easy way to end that war in Ukraine. But there's so many things going on that you need to pay attention to. You know, bombings. We haven't experienced that in America, and we hope we never ever experience that in America, because we don't know how. Many of us don't know how to respond to it. But there are millions of soldiers, former soldiers, that live in. And when I say soldiers, I mean Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Coast Guard. There are many of us out here in this community, and many and all of us know survival, because all of us have trained in survival. And you, as a person who really hasn't done very much on that level, then you should turn to your military people and ask them, what can I do to improve my chances of survival? Because if you do nothing, then your chances of survival equate to nothing. That is not somebody else's fault. That's your fault. You have to do this. And if you do it, then you up the percentage of your family or you surviving a major tragedy or incident in your community. You do that. You also inspire your neighbors that, oh, he's a doomsday prepper. Doomsday prepping is not necessarily what it sounds like. Doomsday prepping has stages. Just because you prepare for a storm doesn't mean you're a doomsday prepper. Just because you have a contingency of water doesn't mean you're a doomsday prepper. Just because you have food stored, a generator, that don't mean you are a doomsday prepper. That means you are prepared for what can occur and the neighborhood that you may live in. That's what that means. So you have to put yourself in that position of what are you going to do? Now, the topics we talk about on BNN 247 is not necessarily what you're going to hear on your local news, but it's what you should know already about survival. Because the bottom line on every situation and on every level is that we must survive. We must survive everything. Can you imagine how hard it was for our ancestors to work their way through these crises and these situations and these problems that occurred over the years, the hundreds of years, for them to survive, for them to get to a place where they got me on this planet now, alive and living well and doing the things that I do? Can you imagine how my ancestors had to manipulate the system to get me here? Same with you. How did they get you here? They did not get you here easily. It was not easy. It was hard for our families to put us in a position to be where we are now. And we must not squander these positions. We got to do what we have to do to make our position on the planet worthy of passing on our genes down the line. You got to do it. You got to prepare. You got to talk. You got to tell your story. People should know. You know, when we step over to the other side, every single learning event you learn over the many years that you've been on this planet are gone with you. You have no means of recording or passing on what you know to the following generation or to 10 generations from now. What do you have to pass on? The best thing that I can tell you is that don't go to the other side without leaving something for your family or your future generations to use in their lives. Well, I got this from my grandpa. I got this from my great, 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 great grandpa. You ought to be able to leave something for them, no matter who it may be. You know, what of you will pass on to the next generation other than your material things? You can pass your material things in it all day long and they go through it, do what they want to with it. But your memories, your special moments, the times that you can remember generation after generation. I remember when. Get your family talking like that about you. But don't go to the other side without leaving something that's within you. Something from within you that went into them, and then they can be in that situation in that moment and say, yeah, I remember when my grandpa told me about this. Or I remember when my grandma told me about this. That's the kind of stuff we want at BNN 247 on this day, November 30th, 2025. Did you know Letitia James, her case was dismissed? Now, Donald Trump brought her up on charges. His crew, they brought her up on charges for a house she purchased to live in, but she didn't live in it. Somebody else lived in it, her family. You know, if you stayed there once within a 6-month window, then you lived in it. I mean, you can't prosecute that. There's a statute that says how many days constitute you living in this house. And for as I know, it's once every 6 months. One night out of 6 months. In Denver, Colorado, in prison, they've established what they call a veterans wing of prisoners. In other words, there's a ton of veterans going to jail nowadays. So Denver, Colorado has established a whole wing or dedicated a whole wing to nothing but military veterans. So now all the veterans get to hang out in prison in their cell block together, rather than being mixed with general population. Because military people are different. They're very different. I mean, I don't know how to put it, but we are different. And I don't know if it's the brainwashing, because if you went in the army back when in the time I went in the army, you got brainwashed. You got made to believe you are super trained. You can run through anything, and then they build you up. It was something that I enjoyed during the time I was there. Another thing that I would mention, when you go to the store, how many times are you asked, would you like to donate the rest of your change to ABC? And most of us are so consumed about our own thoughts at that particular time that we don't pay attention to what they just asked us. So we say, yeah, go ahead. So they take your change and round it up. And in some cases, when you go up to a gas station and you're using cash and you give them your cash, they really don't give you your change back unless you ask for it. And now everybody's asking you, did you want a receipt? There should never be a no thank you on do you want a receipt. Always, 100% of the time, take your receipt. Even if you ain't gonna do nothing but ball it up and throw it in the trash. Take your receipt, because that is, I mean, you paid for that receipt. They already got your meal marked up at least 40%. Sometimes as high as 65%. It might be higher, but it's marked up. You can rest assured that they got the receipt price calculated into the price that they charge you for your meal. And on some cases, they'll have a 4% surcharge for waitress staff or for cooking staff or whatever the case may be. But all of that money is going right back to the owner. They're not passing that money on to the people that they line about on that receipt saying this is who this money is for, because it's not. It's going to the people who own the business. When you go to that cash register, don't allow them to keep your change. Don't round up, don't round down. You can round down, but don't allow them to manipulate you out of your money. And you already know as well as I know, the objective is to separate you from your money. And that's exactly what they do. They separate you from your money and they put you in a situation to be a little bit cheaper, a little bit broker, because they're taking money that you've worked, you've earned, you've saved, and now you want to spend it and they want you to donate it. Stop giving away your money. And that's across the board for everybody. People want your change here, want your change there. Your change equal dollars. Ain't nothing spare about no change. That's your money. So don't think just because they're calling it spare change that it is spare change. It ain't. It's money you work for. Don't give it away. Start thinking about the money that you've spent this week on things that you didn't have to, on things. And now if you can afford it, you can spend money wherever you want to, but money has been tight for many, many Americans. So you need to start watching on how you spend your money. Senator Mark Kelly did a commercial, and now he's being targeted by the administration in Washington because he told soldiers, when I say soldiers, I mean all military people, all branches of service. He told all branches of service that do not follow illegal orders. Illegal orders is something that you consider illegal. Nobody else, you consider it illegal because you are the one that's going to be court-martialed if things don't work out your way. So what is an illegal order? Vietnam has been the most important training platform there has been in military warfare. There's nothing more obvious, nothing more broadcast, nothing more seen than trauma in Vietnam. So you're on a patrol and you're approached a village and your sergeant or your lieutenant tells you to wipe out the village. You already know that that's not something that American military does. You don't just wipe out villages just because you suspect something. You know, that's considered an illegal order. And even if you did follow that order, at the end of the day, when it's time for the court martial, you're still going to get court martial because you followed that illegal order, because you were part of it. You were there. So my suggestion to you, if you're in any situations where you're following illegal orders, know your uniform code of military justice, because that's who decides what that was. You decided was an illegal order. So when Senator Mark Kelly did this, he was targeted by the administration as being a traitor. So was Marjorie Taylor Greene. She was targeted as being a traitor. But the commercial makes sense. But maybe it was against the wrong administration. Who knows? New York City Fire Department commissioner, he resigned after Mandami won the mayoral race in New York. You know, in other words, this is a sign. I'm showing you I don't approve of him winning this race. Well, I'm going to resign and I don't care what nobody thinks about it. So he basically showed his true colors after this young man won the mayoral election in New York. Good riddance to him. Somebody has to fill this void that we're having here in America. And this void that I'm talking about is somebody needs to step up and be a leader in our community. You know, although we have the NAACP, we all know that it just seems like it's so hard to get the results you want out of the NAACP. You know, it's got to be more to our leadership level than NAACP. Where else do we have individuals on a plane that we can choose from as our leaders? We don't. So where do we begin to promote our leaders? We have no one. Well, Pastor Bryant, Jamal Bryant out of Atlanta, he's stepping up. He's voicing his opinion as an up and coming Black man. I don't know if you want to consider another pastor for a leader. We've dealt with pastors all of our Black history career to become wherever we are right now. We've dealt with Black pastors. Are Black pastors the people to change who our culture rests on? I mean, do they set the platform to tell who we are? Are they the people that make the level of success for us? Who are the black pastors that make up this level, this hierarchy level that's above where this Mason line is right here? Who's above this line making a difference for our entire race? And the problem is, it's a problem for us, but it's not a problem for them because it's a successful disappearance. It's a disappearance of black people. They don't want us to have a culture. They don't want us to form a unanimous front of black people. But in America, you see that there are Chinese people. They got their own communities, their own money, their own way of government. In Chinatown, you got Japanese, they got their own. You got the Scottish, the Germans got their own. Where can we find ours? A German in Texas is just like a German in Minnesota. They German. But a black or African American or a Negro or whatever you want to call us, we're not the same. No, we have no connection whatsoever across this country. We cannot say all black Americans show up over here, all African Americans show up over here, all colored people show up over here, and all former descendants of slaves form up over here. How do you don't, there's nothing established for our people, which means we don't really have a solid number of what we are. But see, we've been bottlenecked into being black. And if you look at the definition of being black, it's the shortest definition of all the other races that they recognize. We got to do better than what they recognize because we allow, this is again, when I said you prepare for a disaster in your neighborhood, so you don't be running around asking your neighbor for water if you need some and you got no other means to go get it. You already got it because you prepared for it. We're not prepared to move forward with our race because we are still struggling with who we are. And you think the people who put us in the situation gonna help us get out of it? Not today. Hell to the no. They're not gonna help us get out of this situation. The only people gonna get us out of it is us. That's why leadership is what we're missing. And it's so difficult to say who will be that person because the first time we get somebody up there, they're disappeared. There's so many problems that we have to deal with. There are groups that are really respectable and trying to do something here, but groups that form based on fiction, groups that form based on fiction, fiction being non-truthful or non-factual are questionable to be in leadership. Because if you are forming your group on fiction, then you're asking everybody to follow you down a dirt road, a road that leads to nowhere. Because you don't have anything to go on that you can stand on. You have something to go on, but you can't stand on it. because you have no proof. Prove it. That's all you got to do. Prove it. We still haven't gotten the Epstein files released, even though DT signed it. Military orders, leadership discussed. What is going on with that? Epstein files are never going to get released. We might well forget that kind of stuff. If you really want to know something, look at what the tariffs are doing. Look at the gas prices. Look at the food prices. We're being told that every gas prices are $2. That food prices are down. Grocery prices are down. If you were a White House reporter and you stood there and asked a legitimate question about what's going on, you run around keeping score. Oh, I stopped 8 wars. I stopped 9 wars. And here it is. You got people, American people who've earned their credentials now. They earn their credentials, not through swindling people, but through accreditations. They've earned their credentials. So now you're in front of an administration and you ask a question and you're being called stupid because the question can't be answered. And then you go personal on human beings that have nothing but respect for you. And then you go personal on them and to degrade them to a level that's unacceptable to human beings. And it's 100% unacceptable coming from the POTUS, which is the top person, what is it, TPIC, the top person in charge. The TPIC, the TPIC, should have more manners and more common sense and more respect for his fellow Americans than displayed. Why would you call somebody Miss Piggy? Or why would you call a seasoned reporter stupid? See, these reporters allowing him to get away with that kind of stuff. James, good to see you. The reporters are allowing this person to get away with that kind of stuff. We already know about the plane crash for the UPS. One thing I want to just reiterate is what I talked about the Democrats. The Democrats, I already knew they were going to cave in when DT would never give up. He wouldn't. The Republicans were never going to cave in on that situation when the government was shut down. It's sad that that's what we have. They should just stop asking them questions. Right, James. That's a good comment, man. Why? I mean, it might work. Don't ask him anything because then he won't have to be insulting to those people. But it's the Americans' privilege to ask the POTUS questions. I mean, what's wrong with asking him a question? That doesn't make you stupid. That doesn't make you a person open for insults. Just because you asked a question, you can be insulted, and it's illegal for you to respond when somebody makes a mockery of you. But you really make a mockery of yourself, even though you're talking about somebody else. No more pennies. So all of you that's saving pennies, they're gonna be worth something in 100 years. Eugene, good to see you. Insurance and healthcare. Now I'm just going over some topics that you should know about as well. Um, Insurance, I'm sorry to say, is going up no matter what. Gas is going to go down and go back up. It may go down to about 225, and then it's going to go up to about 350 and a $6 gallon in California. So ain't nothing cheaper nowadays. You pay the same price for smaller items. The items in the stores are getting smaller, and I'm sure you can see it when you go in there that the items are not the size that they used to be when you used to buy those items. That is the change that we have to deal with. But it's not something that we really want to deal with, but it's just what we will have to deal with. You've heard of a few items about us doing this blackout and not spending our money on these shows, or not spending our money on these stores that hold Black Friday sales. What's I mean, they're knocking money off the top, but they're making money on the other end. So because you're gonna buy more than what you went in there for. So don't be fooled by this Black Friday stuff. If you're gonna get something on Black Friday, get major appliances. You get them knocked off, get the prices knocked off of them. You know what the price of those items have been all year because you've probably been looking for them. So major appliances would probably be a decent area to start shopping in for Black Friday, other than this little mediocre stuff that you find out there that we run to the stores for. We don't have to do that anymore. But Starbucks, Starbucks uh, got 65 stores that they're closing, and they also have over 2,000 stores right now. And by them having so many stores, they only decided to close 65. People for Starbucks are going on strike. I don't know if they're still on strike, but I know they went on strike. Savannah, Georgia is a great place to live, by the way. More people in America are moving to Savannah, Georgia, and that's a wonderful thing. Um, we talked about shared resources when it comes to preparing for a disaster and how it may affect your neighborhood. We talked about direct aid, the rescues, people, the helicopters coming in, the fire department coming in, the police coming in to save whatever they can to help you through a crisis. But ain't nothing like helping yourself. So know your area, know what you can do to protect yourself, know how to maneuver through this type of situation. Social bonds. Once a disaster happens, you usually get to know who your neighbors are, and you usually get to socialize a little more with the people who live around you. Um, it strengthens your community. The more people that know each other, the stronger your community becomes. You know, and in many cases in America, there are no very specific communities, but there are people who hold near to their hearts and without question places in their culture that nobody else can go. There are places where nobody else can go. But we are so open hearted, and we've been this way all along. That's how they ended up with all the land in America that they took. Oh, and by the way, the Office of Management and Budget are the ones who establish what the races are. federal government Office of Management and Budget. They say what blacks are, they say what whites are, and when they say black or African American, they don't mention anything about a black being from this country. They said of African origin only. That's all they're going to say about black and African American, that black and African American is of African origin. But then when you go down to white, they say white of the Americas. The Americas now. Like they've been here all along. They were already here, but they give them credit for the land. That's all they're doing. They've removed the credit from the original inheritance by God. And they've given manly by their administrations, they've given the land to themselves. And they've kind of pushed us out of the way. So we can be pushed out of the way without problem. We're out of the way. But we're not the ones who you're going to have to deal with for taking our land. You can go to Leviticus 25:10. Leviticus 25:10, and it will tell you that this is our land and it needs to be returned to us. So does our possessions. And anything that you've taken from us need to be returned. But you can forget that. It's not going to happen. Not without a divine intervention. That is the only way we'll get that back. Because I'm sure they will fight tooth and nail to keep their thousands of acres under one man, to keep their billions of dollars under one man. They'll not give that up. They will not give it up. You know, in South Africa, when Nelson Mandela became president, he beat de Klerk. That's when they started to repatronize the owners of land in Africa. In other words, they started removing land that white people had possessed and giving it back to the original inhabitants. You know, well, I know they were mad. They were mad about that. But it was the right thing to do because that is what was required. Sooner or later, the same thing is going to happen here. The land that was taken will be given back to the original Americans, which are the black people. I hate saying black people or African American because that is not who we are. But I'm saying it because that is what we relate to. We got to learn our true selves. And our true selves are not, listen to me, we're not African Americans. We're not black. We are Moors. You're Moor whether you like it or not. Whether you go through the steps to make it official or not, you're Moor already. Because every one of us are Moors. You can't change that. You can go all the way back to Muhammad, Abraham. You find who we descended from, Boaz, Ruth, and you'll find that we are all Moors. Moors. Look it up. We create organizations based on the situations that we've been through and how we can improve those situations. We create friends, we create bonds, we create relationships with other entities around the city that know that this was a situation that we need to fix. And lastly, we are the luckiest people on the planet. Each person is the luckiest person on the planet because each person has a right to be here. Each of us has a right to be here. This is the Black News Network, the real voice of Black America, broadcasting live on Sunday afternoons at 3:30 p.m. to 4:30, bringing you the information as we see it and on our level from a Black perspective. You can always find us on Instagram, BNN247. You can find us on Facebook, BNN247. You can find us on YouTube, BNN247. Look us up, leave a comment, watch some of the shows, and learn something new and spread it to someone else. I want you to have a great day today and a better day tomorrow. I do this. I'm going to end the show, but I'm going to stay with TikTok for a few more minutes. But I'd like to say thank you so much.